fellas. This is the Film Squad podcast, and okay, so guys, welcome to the Film Squad podcast, where we talk about film-related things and how people got into the business, and that's kind of what this episode is going to be on. It's how my brother got into the industry. You guys already know how I got in if you've watched my YouTube video, which 20,000 people have watched it, so maybe you're one of them.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
If they're listening and watching the podcast, I would hope so.
I hope so. Anyway, so yeah, today we're talking about my brother, Tyler Meehan, and how he got into the industry, which kind of happened a very similar way that I got in. How did you get in? Question number one is, what was the thing that made you want to get into film?
That's a hard question because there were a number of factors. So, for instance, when you started going to acting school and you would ask me for scripts and I wanted to do, you were like, oh, well, we're shooting some things, we need scripts, and they're asking for submissions. And I was like, well, you know what, I've always wanted to try that, and decided to go do that instead, because screenwriting was more what I was interested in. And then when you came back to China with the camera and we decided we were going to write and film stuff ourselves,
yeah,
that kind of lit a fire under my ass in terms of...
Right. Well, you need to write right. Let's make content.
Exactly. And before that, I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. So it did kind of put things into perspective and gave me a goal. So I was like, yeah, I want to be a screenwriter. This will be fun. And then came back to Canada.
Didn't realize that it's just not as easy as it is in your head.
No, not at all. But at the same time, I was like, well, I don't have any fundamentals for any of this stuff either. So I figured film school was a good idea. And I mean, in terms of what most people kind of condemn film school for that, as like currently it didn't help me with my job.
Right.
It didn't help me even understand what I'm supposed to do.
Now that you know what
Yes.
film entails, film school didn't actually teach you what you needed to know on set.
Yes. Yeah, they didn't really do much in the way of that. And it was a little bit discouraging finding that out afterwards. But, I went to film school at Humber College, and I took their 3-year program instead of their degree program.
But what does the film degree really get you?
It gets you a degree at the very least. So if you want to switch careers, you can do that later.
But for everyone listening, do you need a degree to get into camera or get into directing or get into producing on a Hollywood film set?
No, you don't need a degree to get into anything like that.
And when I say Hollywood film set, for everyone listening, I'm actually just talking about a Hollywood size production. Hollywood being Netflix, Paramount, Universal, Amazon, YouTube Premium now is also considered, like, they have big budget productions that you can watch on YouTube Premium. Those I'm just considering Hollywood, and that's why where we are, Vancouver, is Holly North, because there's so many productions going on all the time here. I mean, that's one of the reasons why you can get into the industry fairly easily here.
Oh, I still wouldn't call it easy.
Well, yeah, there's still a lot of loopholes. Yeah. I mean, not loopholes, a lot of
hoops to jump
through, yeah.
So nonetheless, went to Humber College, did the 3-year program, learned... I did learn about the jobs, so that kind of helped. Knowing the hierarchy, knowing the jobs, knowing where I might fit in was good because, I did essentially go to school for screenwriting. Even though it was an overall film course, I ended up taking more screenwriting and other production writing and things like that. They were all writing courses for the most part of my majors, which ended up being I think I majored in like feature film development and minored in cinematography, which was one of the courses, and also in writing for television. So like that was kind of my way in, and so they're like, oh, now you have a co-op class. You have to do some co-op hours and find a placement. So I found a placement in a production office where I ended up reading scripts full time for about 3 or 4 months before I realized they weren't going to hire me, and got out of there.
Got out of there quick. Yeah, but were they paying you?
No.
Because it was a placement.
No.
So it was free.
It was free.
Because it was a placement within the school, for the school.
Well,
for school.
It was an internship, technically. It wasn't like a co-op placement, I guess.
Right.
Internship's the right word. But the thing is that here in Canada, internships are generally free. You don't get paid for them, which is stupid because it's real work.
Yeah.
You know? And it's not like I was spending only like an hour or two a day there. I was there for 12 hours a day working, reading scripts and writing coverage, which was not an easy task.
Half of the hustle is finding out what you want to do in film, opposed to just going in at full force, I guess.
I guess, yeah. But what I realized was that, getting into film as a screenwriter is next to impossible.
Yeah.
There are about a million people. There's like a couple million people trying to become screenwriters, and they work their asses off writing scripts every day, working dead-end jobs, so that they can maybe get one sold one day.
Yeah.
And the thing is I just didn't have that kind of time. When you have a family to feed, it doesn't work that way.
Okay, and so after you graduated, what did you do to get into film?
Well,
and why don't you just tell everyone what you do in the industry as of right now?
Okay. As of right now, I'm a first assistant camera person and I'm unionized, so it's not like I'm getting paid crap wages either. That's with IATSE. Currently, IATSE 669, which is for Western Canada.
For the camera union. Yeah.
Yes. And essentially what my job entails is making sure that the camera is in focus during a shot, which is much harder than it seems. When you think of, the camera just kind of stays in focus when I'm watching that movie, right? There's a person who does that.
Yeah, you're
and
that
it's
guy.
Not easy. Yeah, because the thing is if for those of you who know about cameras in general, there's this thing called depth of field, and the wider you have the lens open in terms of like the f-stop, the more difficult it is to
yeah, because your focus will be
yeah
millimeters when you spin the focus wheel.
Exactly, and it just becomes very difficult. And most films, they have a lot of depth of field, so it's not an easy job, but you see it in the film and you don't think about it.
Right. So before you got into the camera union, what did you work on and how did you get on those productions?
So my story was just kind of luck. It was all luck. So I was living in Hamilton at the time, Hamilton, Ontario, which is, Steel City.
The hammer.
Yeah, the hammer. And I had a couple of friends in the art department, and there was I was looking for a job, and I was talking with some people that I knew that I was kind of networking with, some friends. The main one named Tracy, and a guy who was already a successful screenwriter, which I won't name because he doesn't specifically like his name put online.
Okay.
But yeah, these two guys, or these two people, helped me to get a job, or at least to get some contact with this place. Now I cannot remember for the life of me what the place was called, but it was a rental house for things like props and set deck.
Okay.
So they had like a million things on the second floor of this place that films shoot at all the time called the Cotton Factory. And I went in there, talked with some people, and they were like, "Oh yeah, well, we have some projects that are coming up, and we could use someone who could write some like pitch packages and things for like documentaries." So I'm like, "Oh, sweet." I mean, I haven't had any success with it, but shit, I'll try,
Yeah.
right? So I gave that a try, and then those projects fell through even after I interviewed some people, like some of the bands that they wanted me to interview for the documentary. I got to meet some cool people. It was just good for that.
Right.
And then one day, there was a show, or I guess a short film that was going to be shooting there, and they didn't have a first AC. And I was like, well, I did that a lot in college. I spent a lot of the films that I worked on. That's what that was my position of choice. So I talked with the DP of that, who's a good friend of both of ours now, Vlad.
Oh, Vlad.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I ended up working as a first AC on that. Now that was only like a 10-day shoot, but the good thing was that I was being paid for it right away. Even though I was still very brand new to focus pulling, especially with the lenses that we were using and the cameras and stuff, and I didn't really know much. It was a good learning experience, and since it was a short film and I was able to get paid for it, I was like, fuck, why not, right?
Yeah, and I just want to touch on this because I've been telling them a lot about when you like to never give up and you never know who you're going to be working with.
Yes.
He met Vlad. I didn't know who he was. Gave him his first job as a focus puller. It's probably been like 5 years or something later.
No.
4 or 5 years later.
Wasn't even 4 or 5. It was about 3 years later.
All right, say 3 years later. Okay, Vlad is now one of the operators on Riverdale. Mm-hmm. So from short film to high profile TV series.
Yeah,
and you never know where they're going to end up. And I've met Vlad on Riverdale and a bunch of movies out here. So I just wanted to touch on that you never know who you're going to work with and where they're going to go.
That's true. And if we're on the topic, just because Vlad didn't even start in camera. He started as a lamp op. And then he kind of gradually moved to camera, and then just became a camera operator because he wanted to be a cinematographer, but it takes time to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I worked on that show, did the 10 days, met Vlad, met some of his friends. He had someone come out to be the gaffer and whatnot, and it was a good time. Stressful, but a good time. We were working like 20-hour days sometime. I mean, but it was an extra $1,200 that I got to put in my pocket, so why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Then after that finished, there was another show that was going to be shooting in this same place, the Cotton Factory, and they were getting a lot of their props from there. And I finally got to meet some of their props people and set deck people, who are also good friends of mine out in Hamilton still. And what I ended up doing was applying for that job since it was coming around. And so I met with the DP, a guy named Jeff Mahar, who
I ended up working with later on.
Yeah. And I ended up doing three movies with them. So I did Better the Dead, then Let Her Out, and then The Heretics. So I did those three, and you came out for The Heretics.
No, I came out for Let Her Out.
Sorry, for Let Her Out. Sorry.
For Let Her Out. And then it's fun. Another funny thing is just because I worked on Let Her Out, which I worked for free, keep in mind, I did not get paid for that feature. I wanted experience. Again, 3 years later, actually, it was more than 3 years later. That was about 4 years later. And, Jeff Mahar gives me my first focus pulling job, unionized show call. So I didn't just do it for the day, I did it for the whole show, which sometimes it's who you know, but guess what? I worked for him for free first, so it paid off later on.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, right? Is that like I would do a show for free here and there, and then I would never hear from them again or whatever. But then with Jeff and them, I got paid right out the gate, but I didn't get paid much.
Right.
I think I was getting I was getting less than minimum wage in Ontario, so I was getting like I think $800 for 2 weeks of work, and we're shooting like 18 to 20 hour days, and then we'd take like 10 hours off, and then we'd be shooting another like 20 hours.
Yeah.
Which is just craziness, right? I was killing myself pretty quick doing those shows.
Okay, so let's fast forward to your very first job in Vancouver, on a union show.
Oh, well, yeah, that's kind of where I was going next.
Oh,
anyway.
okay.
Yeah. So I get a call one day from our mutual friend Vlad, who is saying that he's having extreme difficulty finding someone. And there's like no one available in Vancouver because the union was just starting to get busy, and I guess the tax credit had just come out. So there was an influx of work, and they didn't have enough people. So I applied for the union. I ended up getting in while I was already on a show out there. But they permitted me for most of that show.
Which is rare.
Yes. It was at Debbie Gibson's show for Hallmark.
Woo! Love working with her. Worked with her once as well.
Lock it up! Every 2 seconds.
Every time that they want to lock up the set, which means, like, fucking shut everything down. We're going to shoot. Be quiet. Shut up. She goes, lock it up.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so yeah,
very cringy.
I was working at Staples at the time, selling computers and shit to people. Because I had to, make money for food and whatnot.
Real dream job.
I think even at that point, I was using the food bank because I just wasn't making any money.
Yeah.
And jobs are super scarce in Hamilton, especially ones that actually pay more than minimum wage. And I was getting like the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Minimum wage, and they were only giving me part-time hours, so it was kind of difficult. But yeah, nonetheless, I was like, okay, I'll go out there. It's 3 weeks. Yeah, I can probably save a ton of money. So I went out there, got paid a really good wage, was happy with it, and then I decided to move out here. And then I ended up just staying out here. Now I just work.
Yeah, since you got into the union, I mean, that's how you got in.
Yes.
There wasn't any obstacles, really. It's all the hard work and learning your job. And then when the job did come and say, hey, can you do this? You had the skills to do it, and you got it done. And so that just shows going forward, you're going to get more work after that. Especially getting into the union that way. It's a lot more difficult for other people. Like,
well, here's
my path. Everyone's path is 100% different of how they got in.
Of course, but there's always that little bit of luck that you need too, and I always like that quote or whatever that's like, or the saying that luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah, that's true.
And that really helped because that's what I needed. I needed both of those things. I needed to be prepared, and then the right opportunity had to come along.
Right.
And then, bam, I'm in.
And just because Tyler is my brother and he is in the union at that point did not mean that he could just get me work.
That's true.
It's impossible for someone in the union to just be like, I'm going to get this person work. You still have to, like, literally get references from people in the union, even just to get in the trainee program. Then you have to get all your trainee days to one day be a second camera assistant like myself. And then for me, I have to get all of my focus pulling days permitted even in the union to apply as a focus puller.
Yeah.
To get in as a focus puller.
Once again, I was like one of the lucky ones. I was just able to join as a focus puller, and not everyone gets that opportunity.
Yeah.
But another funny story too, though, was that I was working on a short film with a guy named Arthur Cooper, who is now the DP on Burden of Truth, and he did actually a show that's now on Netflix called Kill the Messenger.
Oh.
Yeah.
How about you just let us know some of the things that you've gotten to work on since you got into the union, some shows that people might know.
Riverdale, The 100, The Exorcist TV series season 2. There's actually a really cool part right in the first episode, like one of the opening scenes where this like monster woman comes out of a pile of tar.
That's so wicked.
That was my shot because I was there for that day. But we got to do some pretty cool stuff on that show, even though I personally am not a huge fan of it. But I've also got to work on like The Flash and DC Legends, a shit ton of Hallmark movies, which don't seem like much.
Oh, you did Shut Eye, which is on Crave.
I did
well,
one
you did
day.
One day, okay.
One day
well,
Shut Eye.
You got on the show.
Yeah. Yeah. What else?
We Summon the Darkness, which is coming out soon.
Right. Yes. I almost forgot about that, even though we were talking about it earlier.
Do you know what platform that's coming out on?
I have no idea. I'm hoping it's going to hit theaters at some point. It just played at Fantastic Fest and in Austin, Texas, and apparently they killed it. Like people really liked it.
We're also working on a movie together, which doesn't really happen very often. It's a movie for Netflix by director Patrick Bryce. He has done some episodes of the show Room 104. He did the movie with the Duplass brothers called Creep and Creep 2. And he also did this movie called The Overnight, which, if you haven't seen this movie, you definitely need to go check it out because it's incredible.
Yeah, it's all about insecurity. It's so good.
Yeah, but this movie that we're doing right now, we can't say too much about, but it is a horror film, and Netflix doesn't have a lot of original horror films that they've released, but I think this one is going to be exciting, and I can't wait to check it out.
And it looks really nice, like the lighting and everything. It's just phenomenal.
The lenses that we're using are actually, I didn't like them at first, but now that I'm seeing some playback stuff, they're looking beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it. That's how he got into the industry. Some stuff that he's worked on can give you guys hope too, that one day you guys can work on something, for Netflix, for Paramount, for Universal, for any of those companies that you normally watch movies from. And stay tuned for the next one. And if you guys have any questions on the YouTube page, you can comment down below, or that's about it. That's the only place you can comment, because this podcast is going to go up on Spotify and Apple Music. Don't forget to subscribe and follow our podcast. Things are going to get good on this channel, and I hope you guys
hit the bell icon.
Smash that bell to get notifications whenever we post a new podcast. Okay. All right, and that's it.
At 3 million subscribers, I'll do a mustache reveal.
A mustache reveal. Oh, hold on. Before we leave, you got any advice for anybody? Take it away.
Ooh. My advice is be passionate about what you're doing. If you're not, it's not worth doing. That's just kind of how I live my life. Outside of work, I still work on cameras.
And my one piece of advice is, if you're not going to be in the film industry to make movies and you're only in it for money, fuck off.
Oh, also, you better like movies if you're getting into film.
Just fuck off.
Because you know what? It's terrible not being able to talk with anyone on set about movies, because every time you fucking say anything that is not a fucking Hollywood like blockbuster, like a fucking Marvel movie, no one knows what the hell you're talking about, because no one watches anything else, it seems.
And on that note,
we're out of here.